This week's episode of This Is Only a Test is made possible with support from Evidence. Evident's unique distributed data model can readily adjust to meet growing businesses and supports compliance with evolving security and data protection regulations like GDPR and CCPA. Evident's rigorous access controls and user consent capture processes help to minimize the risk of handling sensitive personal data. Visit evidentid.com/test to learn how Evident can help you confidently verify users faster and safer.
Hey, let's start the show.
For Thursday, December 5th, 2019, welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. Hello and welcome to the first podcast of the last month of the decade.
That's true.
Is it true? Is it really though, Jeremy Williams?
Yes.
Welcome to the podcast.
It's the first podcast in 2 weeks as well.
I know. Well, last week you got an episode, but it was from the past. It was a vintage episode of the podcast. I'd secretly hoped that we'd be able to convene and record an episode, but understandably, it was the Thanksgiving holiday here in the United States, at least, and I didn't want to make that ask. So hope you enjoyed that episode. I just kind of looked through our archives, and it was. Did you know which one episode? I assume you didn't download and listen to the episode.
That's a correct assumption.
You were on it though. It was in the old office. It was you, me, and Will back in 2015, and it was the announcement of Jibo.
Wow, that was then?
2015.
It was right here.
I know. That Kishore isn't here, so you know what? R.I.P. Jibo. Since then, Jibo was announced, lived a short, brief, inglorious life, and now is dead.
Jibo!
Make me a sandwich. Jibo. Sorry, Jibo. And also, it was after California Extreme 2015. That episode.
All right.
We were there, and that was the year that, remember, they announced the Masters of Destruction pinball machine featuring Jamie and Adam.
Oh, wow.
Eventually,
Didn't happen.
Didn't really happen. Yeah.
Wow.
But we had talked about that on the podcast. I was listening to bits of it as I was preparing the episode for these, and I hope you guys got a chance to listen through it again. It was really a wild trip through memory lane.
Did we talk about VR at all?
We did talk about VR.
Yeah.
But we also talked a lot. You talked a lot about pinball. And 4 years ago, I was still promising and threatening to buy a pinball machine. But I still haven't done it yet.
You got as far as a playfield.
I did.
You got a Star Wars playfield on your wall.
I'm very happy with that. But I still think about the right time to get a honest to goodness pinball machine.
No, you're confused. It's always the right time to get a pinball machine.
Not necessarily financially, or for the sanity of the household and the other occupants within, family, housemates included.
The question is, how much space can you dedicate to pinball? Because they multiply.
Oh.
When you have one, you'll realize you'd like another.
Because you feed it after midnight.
And everyone has their opinion on how many is the appropriate number.
What is it? 4?
I think 3. I'm a 3 guy.
wait.
But there are 10 people out there, people who think 10 pinball machines is the right number because that's about the number that you can maintain yourself and play.
Well, I don't understand.
Well,
how does that work?
They take love and care, right?
Right.
They break down on occasion. You have to rewire things, solder.
I can't imagine playing 10 machines on a regular basis. I can barely imagine playing 3 machines on a regular basis. Are the 10 people, do they get bored of 3? Is 5 not enough for them? They need more rotation in their life?
It's all a matter of perspective. I think that they probably would be happy with 1 on some level. My very good friend back in Virginia, Brett, has a single pinball machine, has had a single pinball machine for like 5 years. More than.
What game?
The same game, Twilight Zone.
Oh, well, that's a good one.
Yeah. And he's perfectly happy.
And I can imagine the people who have 10 maybe want some that represent different eras of pinball they love.
Yeah.
and not
Are you
just
ma-
want the.
Maybe you're waiting on the game. Maybe you're waiting on what's the right game for me.
Well, I thought I had the right game in Batman 1966.
Yeah.
It's the one where I love the franchise. I love the art. I love the playfield.
We didn't talk about that on that podcast. 'Cause
No,
that wasn't out yet.
That's right. And we have sense. I know that. And I love the fact that it pulls back all that restored footage. It has so much awesome footage.
From the original show.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that one's so expensive.
It is. They don't even make like what
The
they call
basic.
Pro, which is
Right.
the basic
basic
level.
version. Right. And then, of course, Star Wars came out. And that one, I think, is slightly bit of a disappointment for me.
Oh, that's too bad because I was going to sell you one.
You were going to sell me a Star Wars.
I operate one. I'd be happy to sell it to you.
Yeah, see, the fact that
Very,
the
very.
fact that you would let go of a Star Wars tells me everything I need to know about Star Wars as a pinball machine today.
Very low price.
Low price of $6,000.
No, I'll much less than that.
What is it? 4,500 retail?
No, I think retail was probably 5 something.
Okay.
I would go closer to 4.
Wow.
Yeah. So we'll talk.
Are you trying to put a pitch out there for listeners in the Bay Area to buy
No.
your Star Wars machine?
No, just you.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. That's that's
It
a
always
lot of money.
does come down to that, doesn't
Yeah.
it? They hold their value.
Well, apparently for you, not really, because you would be willing to lose money on that Star Wars.
That's true.
Yeah, so that was nice. Again, blast from the past, walk down memory lane. But what a big 2 weeks it's been. I'm really, it's unfortunate that Kishore isn't here today because I know he had a lot to say and a lot of thoughts about the news for the past few weeks. And I apologize that we are going to be a little bit late in discussing the big news. But last you heard from us, we recorded the week before Thanksgiving. And since then, I've been in like 5 cities.
Since then, everything's happened.
Everything has happened. Where do we begin? Do we begin with Thanksgiving? Let's start basic.
No, I think we skipped the pleasantries.
What?
There's too much.
How was your Thanksgiving?
It's fine, Norm. It was fine.
It was fine. The whole time I was thinking about VR and trucks and electric cars.
I got to spend Thanksgiving with my mom for the first time since I was 12.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I've always spent it with my dad. So I spent it with my mom. It was very nice. And I had my 12-year-old there. So
Oh,
it
yeah.
was like
Yes.
generations of 12-year-olds spending time with their mom. And their dad.
Are you still a 12-year-old in your head?
In many ways.
Yeah. I think who is it? Like Neil Gaiman said that everyone in their head is like 17 years old. And no matter how old you get, 17, 18 is around when you kind of find out who you are.
Yeah.
And when everything happening around you in your life has extra special meaning. So like you hold on to that.
I think that's a very positive view. I think he's a creative person, and I think most creative people are that way.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of suits out there who have grown up, have forgotten the inner child.
Well, that's the plot of Hook.
Yes,
Very
exactly.
much so. The plot of the Robin Williams movie Hook.
Exactly.
Go back to Neverland. I had a pleasant Thanksgiving as well. Went to Indiana, traveled the baby. I do not recommend traveling with a baby.
Baby,
Period.
really?
Ever.
Aw, really?
Ever. Red eyes are wonderful if you're traveling with a baby.
I don't even recommend traveling near people with babies.
Yeah, I'm sorry. On the flight back, I was in between 2 babies. Danica was with Avery to my right, and we had another woman with her 10-month-old on our left.
Karma.
So I was right between 2 babies.
Yeah.
The other baby, much better behaved than my baby.
Well, you can't train a baby
No.
to behave on a plane.
Can't you? Can't you, though?
Not to behave on a plane, I don't think. Like, there's a trick to getting them to fall asleep. You really got to swaddle those
Yeah.
babies going up in the air.
Yeah, feeding that milk, get real
exactly.
tired.
You hear on occasion about parents who bring earplugs for all of the surrounding passengers.
Sure, I don't care. No.
That's not
No,
you.
I got no time. My bubble of my world is so small when that baby is there that I cannot. And I do empathize with everyone sitting around.
After the
baby,
fact.
Yeah, after the fact. Baby was kicking. Baby was screaming. Yeah.
All right.
In the moment, I'm just trying to stay alive. It's survival.
Indiana was all right, though?
It was all right.
All
It was nice and cold. Found I had a hole in my shoe, so I had to go run around and buy a new pair of boots for Indiana. Yeah, I'm unprepared.
All right.
But Black Friday, Cyber Monday happened, of course. Did you pick up anything?
No. My kids they had the day off, obviously, and they wanted very much to go to Dave and Buster's, which,
Oh.
is like Chuck E. Cheese.
Yes.
And so that's what we did. So we still went to the mall. We just didn't go to a store. And man, finding a parking spot was like, getting in unlocking like an achievement. I mean, it was like the whole car was excited.
Did you get the special EV parking spot?
No.
Presumably you went to like the ceremony one.
Do they have EV
They
parking?
do have EV parking.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if like people didn't care and just parked there with their pickup trucks
Oh, wow.
because it was crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've never done a Black Friday shop.
I think the reports were that Black Friday this year, again, it's on the decline. The in-store Black Friday, of course, some people still go in for the proverbial doorbusters, but it's not the madness that it was, and everyone buys online. And even then, online, I felt like the deals were unspectacular this year. I did a survey of them, but I didn't feel compelled to buy anything.
It feels like the whole concept of a loss leader is to get people in the door.
Right.
It doesn't apply to online.
It doesn't.
So
No, it'll get you into the store,
into the
online
to the
store
website
to browse, and so that recommended items around you. I mean, I think the strategy for online is to get you to consider things that you were thinking about, but were not on your need list. Maybe just your want list at a good price.
Much harder to grab people's attention.
Yeah, and I did not have much on my need list this year or on the want list. So I ended up not buying. Well, I did buy one thing.
That's the trouble. I mean, it's good to. Was it for someone else?
No, I did buy for myself.
I don't buy for myself in November or December.
Whoa!
So I do put things on my Christmas list.
Okay, that's a good strategy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's for me. I'm very tough to buy for because I often sometimes get the thing for myself.
Exactly.
But I've told people, if you want to get me anything, like things I don't know about, great, but you'd have to know me to know what I don't know, right? Or listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
Right? Socks. Can't get enough socks. and loop batteries.
I've worn the same pair, like the same type, brand and model of sock and style, like the same print.
Yep.
Every day of this past year. It's the Steve Jobs of socks. He wore the black turtleneck exclusively.
Yeah. Are you going to advertise what it is?
I guess I probably should, but I saw it on The Verge's list of best stuff at the end of the year last year. They're like darn tough. That's what it is. And I found a one that I liked, and they're good. I love these socks.
You love the socks.
They're great. And having not have to think about the socks in the morning, it's wonderful.
Oh, I like that choice.
I don't like
That's an
that.
easy choice to make.
I don't like that.
I like a variety of brands. There's of course the Stance socks, which have great designs on them, a lot of pop culture designs. Also like the what's the wool ones? What are they called?
The wool socks?
There's a brand.
Okay.
Smart Wool.
Yeah.
Smart Wool. I like
Yeah.
Smart Wool socks. Those are a little more
Those
expensive.
are thick.
Yeah. Oh no, they have thinner ones.
They do?
Yeah.
Okay.
But socks stuffed with loop batteries, rechargeable batteries,
What are you
my
talking about?
dream. Is my dream Christmas present.
Socks stuffed. Oh, because you want both.
I want both. For my friends and family, I'm like, just get me socks or get me rechargeable batteries.
Yeah.
Because I'll always be able to make use of those. Give me the good ones, the black ones, not the white ones.
Pros.
The pros.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you got me socks stuffed with a 4-pack of AA and loop batteries, that's the dream. Can't be disappointed.
Rechargeable batteries is a good one. I should put that on my Christmas list.
Yeah. You can never have enough.
No.
You always need them.
Isn't that funny? Because you think you would reach a limit because they start to go into recycling.
But it allows you to have more electronics circulating.
Do you think people are still listening to this podcast?
I hope so. All right. Enough chit chat. Let's get to our.
Top story this week.
Well, last week.
Nothing's happened this week yet because we're also recording a little bit early this week with a little bit of travel going on. Whoa, hold on.
What?
There is a big top story this week. This is more of a business story in tech. Larry Page steps down as CEO of Alphabet.
Okay.
That's big. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sundar Pichai leads both Alphabet and Google now. All right. Okay.
It's almost as if it's one company.
I mean, isn't it basically? Basically. So yes, that's probably a noteworthy and top story, but it's not our top story this week. Let's talk about Cybertruck.
Truck.
Cybertruck.
You were there.
I was there. I almost wasn't there, but I ended up being there.
Simone was there.
Yeah. So, like I said, we recorded, I believe, on like a Wednesday 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
I jumped on the airplane that night for an event I had to go to up in Seattle. It was not for Half-Life Alyx. And then after filming there, I flew down that afternoon and made it to LA. It was like The Amazing Race. You ever watch that show, the reality competition show?
Nope.
Where the teams travel around the world,
Familiar with it.
and they have to make their destinations and jump in cabs. And when they go from city to city, it's about making these tight connections between flights. And so for me, it was filming, and I was up there with Gunther in Seattle. We wrapped up filming, jumped in a lift, head to the airport, made it in time. I was able to get change my seat to the front of the airplane near first class. I can get off the plane.
Wow.
Quickly, got out. LAX is a freaking nightmare. Have you heard about this? The ride share setup they have at LAX now?
No.
It's worse than, I tried to describe this to Danica. It's, like in SFO, they kind of moved it as well. But a lot of airports, the ride sharing, when they first integrated them, they would be curbside. You would get out to departure, and you get in your car, find the license plate of your Uber or Lyft, and be on your way. Because they've kind of overtaken cabs now, they moved them to the parking lots.
Okay, but
And
the Cybertruck.
I know, we're getting there. I'm painting the story. At LAX, it is a village. They've set up Lollapalooza line. It is Hall H line at Comic-Con. Tents set up. Hundreds.
And you're behind
of
schedule.
people. And I'm behind schedule. I need to
God.
see the Cybertruck. So I get my lift. I'm in the car. It's at the Hawthorne Tesla Design Center. This is the SpaceX facility.
Yeah.
This is where on the podcast I talked about where I parked that earlier this year. It's where I watched the Rise of the Skywalker trailer for the first time.
Right.
Blasting the music from my Bluetooth to the car and using the car speakers. That was the location, and I did not make it for the opening ceremonies. Elon went on stage at 8:10 p.m. or it was shortly after 8. It was, of course, live streamed. It was a little more closer to on time. I got off the plane at 7:30. I was in the lift by 8 and making my way over, and I was watching on my phone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So same as everyone else, watching the live stream, and it would open up with a hologram.
Yeah.
It was a woman who was like a hologram doing some sort of
projection. I wish I could have been
projection.
there to see that.
Yeah, I wasn't there to see that. But I got out of the cab, and it was a weird, eerie sight.
Why?
Because the Tesla Design Center is set up so it's shared space in this like business park, all fenced off, right? It's a very industrial location, and you have like SpaceX right there. You have like Falcon rockets kind of on display. You have like, and then you have a supercharger, of course, that's public access, but you need to kind of get in through the gates. And they had all this stuff set up for the party, right? The pre-party, this Blade Runner-esque decor. They had a spinner replica from Blade Runner. That's the vehicle, right? From Blade Runner.
Yeah.
The original Blade Runner there that they picked up. They had the James Bond submarine car,
I saw that.
right? They had that. I think Elon bought that.
Wasn't that a Lotus?
Yeah. Esprit? Lotus. It was on display, and they had like neon lights at this bar with these neon dragon lights, but it was dead quiet because everyone was inside,
Everyone was watching the show.
and everyone outside, staff, and a lot of people just from the public who weren't allowed in, who just wanted to be there because of the public location.
Oh, yeah?
Everyone was on their phone watching the live stream.
Oh, wow.
It was like this weird, like, religious event.
Yeah, it was like our leaders speaking.
And literally everyone, whether they were working, whether they were standing there or in their car, was just staring at the phone, watching this silently and quietly, while literally 50 feet on the other side of the design center, the walls, the event was happening. That was kind of strange.
That's neat. I mean, I could imagine that would be the same at Apple or any other big corporate event if they also made something as big and sexy as an automobile.
But even at an Apple event, when people are working, they're working, right? If you're working an event, you're not watching the live stream. Here, because there was so much mystery around it and so much anticipation, I couldn't get help from anyone. People were just kind of on their phones watching the stream. And I was there too. I had my AirPods on. I was listening to Elon talk about, at that point, he had already unveiled it. So I walked in.
So, at what point did you walk in?
I walked in when the glass broke.
Oh, wow.
The moment the glass broke.
So did you see the ball thrown?
So in the lobby, I finally got my press badge. I walked into the main lobby, and that's where the James Bond car was.
So somebody like on their phone, like out of the
They were
corner of their
like-
eye, they handed you a press badge?
They didn't even check my ID. I'm here for press. I had my suitcase and everything. And I had my camera out, my DSLR. I was filming it the whole time. And they're like, "Oh, press, here you go.
Go away.
Go away."
I'm watching.
Okay. And so I put on my press badge, and I walk in, and there's this little showroom area where they had the James Bond car, and they had a big screen TV. And that's when he was doing the ball bearing test, dropping it on
the vertical test.
The vertical test. I saw that on the screen. I'm like, oh, and I could hear it's weird because when you hear the live event happening on the other side of the wall while you're watching the video with a slight video feed delay. I'm like, okay, got to get in here. So I get in there. There's laser lights everywhere, and it's a brightly lit stage. And I hear the smash, and I hear him say, "We'll fix it in post."
Yeah.
Well, and then he did it again.
Yeah. Yeah, he said, "Should I try let's try the back window."
Yeah.
And Elon said, "Okay." Yeah, that was that I watched that whole thing with my kids.
Oh.
Cuz my wife was actually out of town, so we sat it was gather around, children. The leader is speaking.
Leader is speaking. That's right.
And so we watched that happen, and when that ball hit that window and shattered it,
It didn't shatter. Let's be clear.
when you say it didn't shatter, you mean like it didn't fall to the ground.
or pieces like it.
Right.
Yes.
It broke.
It broke the window.
And when that happened, I laughed so hard, and I felt bad, like for the company that this was happening.
All the people.
But I couldn't help but just laugh in the same way that I would laugh at a blue screen of death at a Microsoft event. Wow. When a presentation just goes off the rails so horribly.
He rolled with it fairly well.
I mean, they did the best they could. Like, if I were Elon, I don't know what I would have done. Like, maybe had them turn the car around so you couldn't see it anymore. The fact that it was the backdrop to the rest of the presentation made it all the funnier to me. Like, that was great. And then, like, it didn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
That's what was stunning. All of the funky fan art that came out after the show included the broken glass. There were 3D printable objects that have the broken glass included.
It is part of legend now.
And their pre-sales are still skyrocketing.
Yeah.
Over a $250,000.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Even more so now. I mean, that was as of a couple days ago. So, of course, as you guys know out there, the car was announced. The moment it rolled on stage, what was your first reaction?
That's a joke. That this is not.
There are people who still believe it's a joke.
That this is a hoax. Like, this is the funniest gag he could think of.
Now, you saw that kind of sliver of a teaser that was released years ago, right?
Yeah.
That was ended up being the front of the vehicle, and people have kind of they tried to extrapolate from that image. Was that the rear? Was that the bed? Was that?
But it was the front.
But it ended up being that it was the LED lights of the front, and I couldn't say I was surprised.
Are you joking? There's not a single element of that car that has the same design language as any of their previous cars.
But they telegraphed Cybertruck.
Yeah.
They requested cyberpunk attire.
But it's still a Tesla. Like, you would think that there would be something that draws a line from the Model 3 to the Cybertruck, from the Roadster, from any other car. Like, there were renders of what everyone expected it to look like, which is like a sports car pickup truck.
Right.
And it's so far away
Pure
from
utility.
anyone's expectations.
I mean, everyone said all the jokes, all the references to every 80s car. And I think that's the reason it's funny is when you think of those cars from the science fiction film days, like the 80s science fiction films.
Yeah.
Those are either prototype cars that were repurposed for film. Much like the Batmobile from 1966, that was a concept car that the TV show then repainted, and there was only one of that became the 1966 Batmobile.
no kidding. Didn't know that.
Or when you see a car that looks like it's a wedge of cheese in Total Recall, it's because they had to, for the purposes of production, quickly and cheaply make a quote unquote futuristic car. And so by virtue of the necessities of production for a movie, it has to be cheap, and that's why this car evokes cheapness.
Well, it's according to Elon, the reason why it is so angular like that is because of the material itself.
Yes.
The stainless steel breaks the machinery that you normally bend, metal with.
Well, it's not built like a traditional car. It's plated as opposed to having the same type of interior structure. It's almost like an exoskeleton.
Oh, interesting.
For the car. And I think one of the reasons, because of course the price was also surprising, right? It starts at 50,000 or 40,000.
Yeah.
39,900, and then the all-wheel drive is 50,000, which is much lower than I think anyone expected.
And then there's a 3-motor version.
And then a 3-motor version, exactly. 70?
Oh, I thought they were 10 above each other.
Right. And this is without any tax rebates, because there's that stuff will expire by the end of this year. They reduce a lot of their costs by having the stainless steel finish, by not having to paint the car. That is a huge expense.
Oh,
in
interesting.
the finish of the car.
Yeah, it's a very raw look. I mean, it's very Mad Max. I grew to like it more than when it first rolled on the stage. It is the least practical car for my lifestyle. I don't need a pickup truck, and I live in San Francisco, so there's no way I'm parking that. It wouldn't even fit in my garage. Like, forget that.
Yeah, it's a massive car.
Let alone, like, would I be able to parallel park this easily in the city? So it's not for people like me. But if I lived out in rural Kentucky, I would absolutely be considering one of these if it was in my price range.
Well, do you remember back in like 20 years ago when Arnold Schwarzenegger was one of the first private citizens to buy a Humvee?
Yeah.
Like, this is like the equivalent of that. This is the statement car.
Yeah, it does
where
remind
you
me of that.
buy like the kind of weird future militaristic car that to make a statement to say you have that car, to turn heads. And then, of course, that became a popular thing, and everyone bought Humvees. It was a big thing for General Motors. And maybe Cybertruck, over its lifespan, will iterate to something that is a little more mainstream.
Maybe. I mean, Humvees are gas guzzlers. Like, that was a...
Well, this is an electron guzzler.
Is it?
It's gotta be. I mean, I don't know how aerodynamic it looks.
It's but there were images, like, I don't know, it's not like heat vision, but something that visualized the airflow around this car versus other pickup trucks, and
the drag coefficient
much better. And Elon chimed in saying that the flat base of the car has a huge effect on airflow aerodynamics as well. It does have the same range as the other Tesla cars, so if it's less aerodynamic, it would have to have a bigger battery.
That's a good question. Have they announced the battery capacity?
I don't think so. Just the ranges.
Right. Because a lot of the cars, like the X and the 3, are built off that 75.
Yeah, because they dropped the 60.
Right. And then you associate that 75, 75 kilowatt hour with the 300-mile range-ish.
Yeah.
For at least the 3. But it's a bad way to measure range anyway, because like the X with the 75 kilowatt hour, it is like 220 miles.
Yeah.
And so for this one, it's got to be a different battery platform for it to be that big. The base itself super flat, so a lot of surface area for a big battery.
What about you? Do you like it?
Not for me.
Right. I want the Matchbox car.
You want the
I want the
I mean,
toy.
people have 3D printed the toy already.
Yes.
I mean, people they want it in Rocket League. It's in it's now a...
It's in Rocket League?
The Rocket League players are petitioning for it, but it's in like some other game. It's in like it's made its way into games already.
Yeah, it's in that VR, a Blade Runner-ish game.
Are you talking about Air Car?
What Air Car became.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, which is a commercial title.
And of course, it has like interesting features, like it has power inverters for 240 volt electricity.
That stuff is awesome,
right?
Like the ATV. Like, I want to know how much that costs. Not that I'm in the market for an ATV, but I am curious what the Tesla ATV costs. They didn't mention that at all. They said, "Oh, and we made an ATV."
And that was their one more thing.
But the awesome thing is that the truck has a 240 volt charger on it for electric vehicles.
That's
I love
crazy.
that. I love that.
For everything. It's like it's your laptop that can charge your phone.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And it also has air compressor. It also, which I believe uses probably because it has the hydraulic lift, right? Can raise and lower by 4 inches or so. The bed is supposed to be really big, and I think a lot of it, the confusion in the designs, it doesn't look like a pickup, even though it has that same kind of storage capacity as a pickup in the back. because it's a 6-seater. Also,
which all I can assume is that the truck is ginormous.
it's massive.
Yeah.
So going back to the actual event, what happened? Of course, they announced everything: the range, the prices, all the specs, and then after the event, they said test rides for everyone. And the ATV came on stage, of course, which is going back to the ATV. Elon has said publicly they'll never make a motorcycle, electric motorcycle. Not interested in that. So what in his mind differentiates? Is it the extra 2 tires for ATV versus motorcycle?
Not a highway vehicle, maybe.
So just literally off-road,
Yeah.
adventuring
Right.
vehicle. You wouldn't imagine seeing the Tesla ATV on surface streets on freeways.
I don't think it's legal.
Oh, it's not? Okay.
I don't-
It's a different classification.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but it would be amazing to take
Yeah.
on a camp out.
Yeah, yeah.
Throw it in the back of the truck.
I mean, there's a whole camping mode for this.
Yeah, is that fake? Like
No, that's from their website.
that camp out mode?
That's a picture right off the Cybertruck website. I'll describe it.
Really?
So people go Tesla camping, glamping, whatever you want to call it. By people have done it in their Model S's and of course in their Model X's by you can put like an inflatable bed by folding the seats down of the rear seats down in your Model S, and you can put a bed there and you can sleep on it, and you can keep the car warm with the AC running the whole night. It will drain your battery, but for the Cybertruck, there's a photo on the website where it literally has a deployable, almost a tent, and then
It turns your bed into a bed.
into a bed.
Yeah,
Exactly.
tent.
And it folds out, and even the tent itself is polygonal. Right? It's all Cybertruck angles.
Right.
And then it has in the back, a place for coolers and your grill, but it basically turns Cybertruck into almost an RV.
Well, does it have a grill? Like it looks to me like a grill pulls out of the back of the truck.
That's got to be an add-on accessory.
Well,
and something that
What do you
wasn't
mean? What do you mean? It's not going to be standard? What are you talking
the
about?
grill won't be standard.
Yeah, of course.
But there's a cavity underneath the bed. Much like in the Model 3 has like a sub trunk. This one also has like a sub trunk.
Oh,
But
so you
maybe
think
that's where
one
the
thing you
cooler
can
or grill
put there
would
is
fit in there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And they've got obviously if they have a 240 volt,
Yeah,
they
you could
can
run whatever.
run whatever they
Yep,
want.
Yep.
Hook a dishwasher up to it.
And you could hose the car down with the air compressor. You could power wash. Get water supply.
Yeah.
So
But so if you lived in rural Kentucky, would you consider something like this?
yeah,
You would.
if I live close enough to a big city where I could get power.
Well, but what about just driving it around? I mean, are people ever going to stop gawking at this car? Ever? Can you handle that level of attention?
Can I? For some people, that level of attention is not enough. They aspire to that level of
exactly.
attention. I think that's really who this is for initially. Even for people who just pre-order, they just want the attention
Yeah.
of putting on their $100 that's fully refundable to pre-order it. So the car rolled off stage. That they had the one vehicle. The one vehicle was the same one used for the test rides.
But what about the black one?
So the one on stage was a covered up clay model.
What?
Yeah.
That
It was
whole
a
thing was a clay
completely-
model?
Or maybe not clay, but a mock-up. It was
one-to-one
not-
scale.
One-to-one scale.
Wow.
Model that was milled in the very room that the design center that the event was held in.
Whoa.
Yeah. So they did all the prototyping in that that hangar space, the
Yeah.
warehouse space, and it was the mock-up. It of course had panels to cover up, so it had the similar kind of the reflective look. It wasn't the stainless steel.
Yeah.
But that was the one that people got to go on stage and take pictures of and get up close to and get the selfies of. Didn't work at all. Doesn't drive. So the one that did drive, the question was, would we get to ride in that one because of the broken glass? And they swapped out the glass. That you can find on Twitter. There are photos of technicians
They
doing
swapped
the
out
walk of shame and
between the end of the
between the end of the presentation.
and you're in the very first test drive. They
Yeah.
swapped the glass.
They swapped the glass out.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's remarkable for just.
I mean, it's like you're racing, and you're stopping in the pit
Yeah,
stop, and
right.
you
Wow.
they built the car, they assembled it there.
so they know how to do that.
I figured they would know how to do that.
That's pretty good.
So everyone who waited in line, most people, because they did cut it off at about 1 a.m. in the morning, but most people, if you waited in line, you got to go on a test ride. It was it was about a 3-4 minute test ride. Wasn't bad, and you got to go not ludicrous mode, but you got to go field acceleration down a long stretch. They filled the car with 5 people, even though it will fit 6 people, because in the front, the center console is a seat by default, and you fold it down for the center console. And they also had this VR experience.
Yeah, using Vives or something?
Using indexes.
Indexes,
And
wow.
they even modified the front plate of the index to say Tesla.
Yeah, they put a little LED display in there.
That was like a 4-person team who did that whole thing. I was talking to them because obviously interested in the VR aspect of it. They put together that demo in like 2 weeks.
What was the demo? Were you in the car?
It was a combination. It was like a showroom demo. So you would start off. It's so funny. They calibrated it. So I believe they had like a row of six stations with 8 lighthouses set up. And they calibrated each of the headsets. So when you put the headset on, you would feel like it would be aligned to the being in the driver's seat of the car. So it's seated experience the whole time, and you were sitting on Model 3 seats.
Oh, in real life.
In real life, because they, of course, have the Model 3 seats.
Yeah.
They just literally put them on a platform and put people on there. And it starts off, it actually reminded me a lot of Air Car, the Blade Runner thing. Lots of like cyberpunk-inspired environments. They would cycle you through a bunch of environments, and they had the car drive up to you. You're standing outside, and you got to see, the rolled up panel on the back for the bed.
Okay.
Because that's just like a sliding door. You get to see the trunk open. You get to sit inside it. The door closes, and you're on autopilot going down like 3 or 4 different vignettes. In the city, out in the wasteland, in a forest environment.
So is it interactive in any sense?
No.
Okay.
You're just watching it, but it gives a good one-to-one sense of the spaciousness of the car, and also looking up, all window, all glass.
But is that how it actually is?
It is how it actually is. It is more viewable sky than in any car that's not a convertible.
Oh, wow. Even more than the current Teslas.
More than the 3.
Wow.
For sure. And the 3 is also very impressive in terms of how much glass. And the X, of course, has that big piece of glass in the front, but here it's that big piece of the glass in the front and also on that sloping piece of the backside of the angle. So that I thought was super interesting. They're not going to release that VR demo because it has literally the same model assets as what their CAD, what they use to design the car. They don't want that out there. So it was only for people who attended the event, but kudos to them for putting that demo and literally buying Valve Index headsets off the shelf and setting those up and getting those running in time for the event. Riding the car itself, it's
You were in the back seat. How was the
back
headroom?
seat, lots of headroom.
Yeah.
Lots of headroom.
Because the apex of the slope is over the front seats.
Yes.
So I would think there'd be less in the back.
Yeah, definitely. I wasn't standing up at
Right,
all.
yeah.
I wasn't like, trying to stand up.
Yeah.
And if you turn around, you can see that back slope of that back glass, but it is all glass. But people in the front seat, there was a generous amount of space between the top of their head and that apex.
I could imagine.
Yeah.
What about visibility out of the back window?
Yeah, right. Not that visible.
Like, is there any? Because if the bed is closed, can you even see out of the back window?
They had it rolled up, so we could look into the bed, and they had the LED lights lining the inside of the truck bed.
So even with it closed,
you cannot see.
you can't see out the window.
Cannot see out the back. And that's why the rear view mirror
Is a display.
with a camera. Yeah. And I tried to ask, what refresh rate is that display? It was bright, it was on the whole time, and it looked smooth, so I can only assume at least 60 hertz for that. Don't get any parallax, of course. There's no eye tracking that I could tell. And the model they had, no side mirrors, just like the first Model X's, which, of course, we expect they'll have to add back on.
Right.
In at least the United States.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how that display is embraced because in the rearview mirror, because it's an option in the Bolt, and I have that, but I've only used it when I can't see out the back window, when I've had so much stuff that I'm transporting in the back of my car that I can't see out of it using the rearview mirror. In which case, it's great because it does a good enough job of circumventing that problem. But the problem is that you have to focus on that display when you look at it versus focusing to infinity, which is basically where you're focused if you're looking at the front windshield. So taking that time to refocus on the rearview mirror, that's not a safe thing to do. And I wonder how people will embrace that.
I think some people, when they're backing up at least, they use. I mean, you can have the rear camera on the entire time.
Yeah.
In your Tesla, and some people do that. They just kind of slide the window down, and they can see back. And I think it works. You do have to kind of switch gears in your brain, right, to realize that is not a live. It is a live, but it's not it's not the photons of what's coming out in the back. You know, it's going through image processing. It's going through an image pipeline.
In some respects, it's better. You can get a wider field of view depending on how wide angle the,
And
the lens is.
you can have night vision. You could have infrared.
That's
you could
true.
have
That's
all
true.
sorts of
yeah, that's absolutely
low
good.
visibility.
True, but I'm just saying that the time that your eyes take to focus
Yeah.
takes more time, and
Yeah.
so there's that element to consider.
There's also a big center display, 17-inch center display.
Yeah, bigger than the current ones, right?
Bigger than the current one in the 3, and had a new UI. So this was
Yeah, I
a
wonder.
tease, we think, of what the upgrade might be for the next gen Model S, X, and even for the 3.
Wow. I wonder, because it definitely had a more Blade Runner-ish look to it.
Yeah, or very minimal interface along the left and the bottom sides, as opposed to this big panel, big icons everywhere. It's more just showing map and car.
The VR game that added the Cybertruck is called Lo-Fi, by the way.
Oh,
Lo-Fi VR.
very cool. I think that's is that it for the Cybertruck? Like you said, pre-orders are 200. I think we take all the pre-order numbers with a grain of salt, with a big grain of salt.
Well, it's only $100 down, right?
And fully refundable. And if anyone, for people who pre-ordered the Model 3, and you got to take any pre-order, any promises with pre-orders with a grain of salt as well, because it doesn't really, they say it guarantees you a spot in line, but I don't think it really matters.
No, because people could get the Model 3 pretty quickly after it came to market.
Yeah,
but it does indicate interest. And I would have, I would have been completely, right, perhaps, but if there was much less. The way that I felt when it rolled out, I said, "There's no way this is a practical car. Like, who's going to drive this thing around in any place where you normally have an F-150?" But here it is. Like, there's a lot of interest in this truck.
The fact that they made the pre-order only $100 tells me that they knew that if they had put it at a standard $1,000 pre-order price, it would have been maybe an order of magnitude fewer pre-orders.
I don't know. It is interest. It is a commitment of $100. They had to go. They had to sign up, put the $100 down. They're that interested.
They're that interested in getting some Instagram likes.
I'm not $100
Facebook
sure
likes.
about anything like that. That's a commitment.
It's fully refundable.
Concerned. Yeah.
Yeah, people also want to lock in whatever pricing and promises that they've announced here in fear that things like autopilot may go up in price in the future. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the 3-motor version is $70,000, and the 3 motors is tri-motor, all-wheel drive.
Yeah.
Also, very curious about that because we're not exactly sure how that's going to work. How do you use 3 motors across 2 axles? Mm-hmm. And I think the Model S, there's a version of a Model S version that will also tap that technology, but it's still being tested right now. So that's Cybertruck. I have not put in a pre-order. I'm not in the right market for it.
Do you know anyone who has?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like somebody you know personally?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And lots of people there, a lot of super fans there, put in their pre-orders.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think a lot of it will depend on how fast they can ramp up to production. It's not supposed to even start production until end of, was it 2021?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. So it's 2 years away.
It's a ways away.
Yeah. And then they did say, the other news, that this is the last of these type of vehicle events
For a while.
they've had for a long while. Because think about all the products they have in the pipeline now, right? Mm-hmm. X, S, 3, Y. Mm-hmm. We saw a couple Model Ys. They had Model Ys there for test rides as well. I didn't get a chance to ride on that one. Probably should have done that. Also the
ATV.
the ATV, Cybertruck,
New Roadster.
and also the semi-truck.
The what?
The semi.
The Semi. Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's
they
a
have a
lot.
lot of products in development.
They do, and a lot of pre-orders.
Yeah. Those superchargers are going to be packed. All right, we'll get through pop culture and tech relatively quickly. We have a new trailer out with Black Widow. The Black Widow trailer.
I did not know that.
Did you not know that?
No.
This is the second MCU movie after Endgame. Of course, Spider-Man Far From... This is the first movie in Phase 4.
Wow.
And it is a prequel. So, not spoilers to say because they didn't make this announcement. They made this announcement at D23 that Black Widow will be slotted in the timeline between Civil War and also Infinity War. So, this is what Scarlett Johansson was doing. It looks like she's going back to Russia. We're going to learn about the origins, maybe, of the Black Widow program. We have a lot of interesting actors in this, including Florence Pugh, who was in Midsommar and Fighting With My Family. And there's also David Harbour is in it as a maybe older superhero. Rachel Weisz is in it as it looks like a former Black Widow. So we're going to hear about what it means to be a Black Widow, not just the Black Widow, as we know.
I don't understand that. I thought there was just one Black Widow.
No, it's a whole program.
The whole thing?
It's a whole thing. There's a legacy of Black Widows.
Well, how do you feel about the time travel? Not time travel, but the not continuous.
That's fine. I mean,
chronology.
It's not spoilers to say that it wouldn't make a lot of sense to do a Black Widow movie after Endgame. So this is the only way you could do it.
Okay.
I would have been happier if they had done this maybe before Infinity War, but you know, the unfortunate thing about this is that you know where the character is going to end up, and it's when anytime you do a prequel, you know, whether it's Solo, whether it's any number of like here's the origin of this character, like characters that you don't see later on, you assume will probably have died off. Will die at the end of this film.
Police officer from Stranger Things.
That's why I said David Harbour.
What is he a hero?
He's the Russian Captain America.
Does he have superpowers?
I don't know.
Wow.
To be determined. Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. Comes out in March, I believe. May 1st, 2020. And so that trailer is out. Very exciting.
Very exciting. What do you think, Kishore? Jibo?
Jibo, tell me about Black Widow. Sorry, Jibo.
I'll bet Jibo and Kishore have thoughts on this.
Other Disney stuff. There's a new show on Disney Plus coming out called Star Wars Jedi Temple Challenges.
Yeah.
What is this?
Well, it's a game show, isn't it? Is it a game show that challenges people's Star Wars trivia knowledge?
Is that what we really need?
Yes, it is. That's a great idea because I can watch from home, and just like Jeopardy, I can play along and I can know the answers and impress people in the room. Because I only hang out with people who are impressed by Star Wars trivia.
It's a kids' game show.
Yep.
It evokes the early days of Nickelodeon.
It does?
Legends of the Hidden Temple. I hope it's more
We are talking about different eras of the early days of Nickelodeon, my friend.
The 90s era of Nickelodeon.
That is a decade past the early days of Nickelodeon.
Maybe not the early days, but for me, the early days of Nickelodeon. And I hope it's more kind of like physical activities, right? Like they say they're going to put you on locations like a forest planet, aboard a Star Cruiser, inside a Jedi Temple. So it's not just going to be behind Jeopardy style, podiums and hitting a button to answer trivia questions. It's going to be about immersing yourself in fun ways in the ways of the Force.
Well, sign me up. I want to be on this show.
I think you're a little too old to be on the show.
I want to watch the show then.
You can watch it with your kids for sure.
Are you too old?
I'm definitely too old to be on the show.
All right.
Yeah. There was news out of Variety that DC is trying to figure out what it wants to do with its superheroes. Green Lantern.
They want to make money.
And they do, but they got to tell good stories first. And the big takeaway from this is, the success of things like Joker, rated R, highest grossing rated R film of all time, I believe now. Mm-hmm. They need to figure out, and Aquaman also made $1 billion. They're no longer following the coattails of Marvel in trying to create a shared cinematic universe. The DCEU idea has been debunked, and even what we talked about last time with the kind of the rumors of a revival of the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League. Yeah. That was all completely debunked. It would cost way too much to finish the visual effects for that, to even put that on a service like HBO Max to make it cost effective.
Okay.
So they're looking at the characters like, some of the villains. They're looking at Green Lantern, who needs dire need of a reboot, and they still don't know what to do with Superman. They have a Batman coming out, Matt Reeves doing Batman, and some great casting already coming out of that. Of course, that's Robert Pattinson as Batman, Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, Colin Farrell, I believe, as the Penguin, and who was it? As Andy Serkis as someone. I'll
Okay.
say. But anyway,
Good cast.
they got to figure out what to do with Superman, and they want to find a way to make Superman relevant to modern audiences, which I think
Well, that's a dumb thing to say. What are you
that is
talking
a
about?
dumb. That's my big takeaway. That is the wrong approach. Superman doesn't need to be relevant to modern audiences. Superman is timeless.
Yes, Superman flies. He is bulletproof.
Yeah.
He has heat vision.
Yeah.
He can see through things. He's vulnerable to kryptonite.
Well,
This is timeless stuff. This works for any generation.
so what is the central conflict in a Superman story?
Bad guys versus Superman. Just give me a good movie with Superman.
I think
He's-
it boils down more to that. The central conflict is how difficult it is to be a good guy.
I don't know what you mean, but I think that's exactly right. But I think what you mean is that people like darkness now. Like there is
Right.
Game of Thrones.
Not just people. The world is a dark place.
Yes.
And the struggle of Superman in the modern era is how to be a beacon of light.
Yes.
In a world of darkness, and that should be the center conflict.
And make that
in
a
a Superman
a
story.
hit movie, like
Right.
that people would enjoy and want to go see
Yes.
and relate to.
Right. And so, in fact, the Superman story to tell would be the Superman story set in the dark, gritty cinematic universe that DC tried to make and failed in doing so.
Maybe.
And to bounce back from that and to show maybe that doesn't need to be the world.
See, I did not get into Breaking Bad and Sopranos and Game of Thrones. I want that more uplifting stuff. Give me a movie that makes me feel good. So, if they wanted to go back and try to remake a bright, happy, noble Clark Kent, bring it.
Yeah.
I think that that is a hole in today's modern movie going, selections. So
And it's
give it to me.
ripe for dramatic storytelling, ripe for emotional storytelling.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you're gonna pull anything from Marvel, pull what they did with Captain America. They took the quintessential Boy Scout
Yeah.
and gave him a compelling story that's dramatic and did not pull away from the essential virtues that make him a timeless character. They leaned into it.
Yeah, but don't you think that he benefited from being surrounded by narcissists like
Like Iron Man.
Yeah.
And and Superman could be surrounded by the dark cinematic universe that DC has created and
Yeah.
failed to make a success.
Yeah, that's true.
The cynicism of Batman, and Joker and all that stuff. Let Superman be constantly pushing for a way to be positive.
Yes. Yeah, it needs a good script.
Yeah. Well, the big rumor is that they've been talking to the likes of J.J. Abrams to potentially write a script.
Who's not talking to J.J. Abrams?
He's talking to everyone. Yeah. The backstory for that, Kishore. Remember back in the early thousands when J.J. Abrams was tied to, he famously wrote a terrible script to Superman. This is before Lost, and it was when McGee was tied to direct the Superman movie, and the J.J. Abrams leaked Superman script is the stuff of legend. It was panned by fans, widely criticized. It was filled with Kryptonians. Lex Luthor himself was a Kryptonian, as a big twist in that story. Don't go down that route. Do something different.
Do you have high hopes for the last Skywalker? The Rise of Skywalker?
I do.
Yeah. Okay, good.
I do.
All right.
I'm going to be positive here.
Good.
I'm glad your expectations are low.
How do you know they are?
You've told me such.
That's the only way I can
Search your feelings, Jeremy.
I can possibly
You know them to be true.
enjoy it. Yeah. I'm skeptical.
Yeah.
Cautiously skeptical.
So another DC news. The one thing I did buy over the Thanksgiving holiday, I bought a Lego set. Lego released.
For yourself?
Yes, this is the
Okay.
thing. The one thing I bought for myself.
All right.
Lego released a Ultimate Collector Series
Mm-hmm.
Batmobile based on the Tim Burton 1989 Batmobile.
Okay. Yep.
The Anton Faust Batmobile design. It is gorgeous. 3,300 pieces.
Holy cannoli. Is that like a $200 Lego
It's a
set?
$250 Lego set. I used some Lego points that I had saved up
Good for you.
to buy it. Yeah. There are some videos of people who've gotten early access to it, and it looks awesome. It has the pop-up machine guns.
Whoa.
You can see the interior cockpit. It comes with 3 minifigs, Batman, Vicky Vale, and the Joker.
Are any of those new?
I believe they are all new.
Whoa. Does it shoot things?
It does not actually shoot things.
Okay.
It does come on a swivel base,
Okay.
so it can be displayed in any side. But
Wicked.
yeah, I'm excited to put that together. I think it's arriving sometime next week.
How many times have you seen Frozen 2?
Frozen 2?
Yeah.
0. 0. I'm way behind on my movie watching list. I need to see Knives Out. I saw
Yeah.
Jojo Rabbit. Really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I want to see Knives Out too. But I saw Frozen 2 twice. Yeah. Well, you know,
Sounds like you have children.
I do, including a 9-year-old girl who grew up with Frozen. You know, she was, 4? No? 3? When it came out, when Frozen came out, it was 6 years ago. And
Was that her first movie in theaters?
No, I mean, you know, we took her to movies when she was a baby, but
Really?
yeah.
When's too early to take? Or when is the right time to take your child to?
Well, we had an older kid, so like we still had to go out, right? So, but you know, and you might not see the whole film,
Oh wow. Okay.
or at least not the whole family.
Yeah.
In any case, Frozen 2 is you know, it's an interesting film, and it's too bad you haven't seen it. Have you even seen the first one?
I have seen the first one.
Okay. Did you like it?
Yeah. Yeah.
You did.
I've only seen it, I think, once.
Most of our circle, and by most of our circle, I'm referring to Gary and Will.
Yeah.
They much prefer Moana.
Oh, me too.
Okay, yeah. So I figured.
Moana is our thing to keep the baby happy. We've worn out viewings of, if we had to pay for Moana rentals, we would have paid for like a year of Disney, 2 years of Disney Plus already. Like it is. I need that to be the top tile on Disney Plus because
Yeah.
it is played nonstop.
That's interesting. So I
the coconut.
I also like Moana a lot, but
Better songs.
I actually disagree with you there. I think that Frozen 2 has better songs. I think that's probably Frozen 1 had better songs. That's probably why it was such an immensely popular film. It was the most.
I had catchier songs.
Yeah,
but better. Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote the songs for Moana, and they are all fantastic.
There are some excellent songs in Moana, but I think that there are more consistently good songs on Frozen.
See the line where the sky meets the sea. It calls me.
Yeah, no, it's excellent. It's an excellent song. But from the beginning of Frozen through the end, obviously Let It Go was a massive success. And I read an interesting interview with the screenwriter for that film where she talked about that song being the turning point where they figured out the film. They had the songwriters came in one day, and for the longest time, Elsa was supposed to be the villain. Like she was an evil ice queen. And then they couldn't get her to come to sort of flip and turn good and make it relatable. They just decided to go with, well, what must it feel like just to be her and, finally let your powers out. And that's where they landed on that song. They brought it in. They played it. John Lasseter loved it. Everybody loved it. They ran with it. That's what defined the film. In any case, I would be curious what you think about the new one, because the new one is very different structurally. The first act in the first Frozen is so dense. It's filled with backstory when they were kids.
It doesn't pick up until like half an hour into the film.
The death of their parents, the coronation day, then the powers getting out of control, leaving. It's like a very dense first act. The first act of Frozen 2, sparse. It's a very different film. But the songs, I think, are more poignant and maybe a little more subtle. I'd be curious what you think.
Wow. Alrighty.
We'll talk about it once you've seen it.
Okay. I don't know when that will be, but
What? It's a Disney film. Go out and see it, man. Make time.
if I have time to go out and watch movies, I got Rise of Skywalker tickets. I got Knives Out I got to see.
Okay.
There are other things to watch too.
All right. I guess we're just not on the same page.
Wait, one place we're on the same page. One extra shout out. Speaking of Disney Plus, Imagineering Story. You got to watch it out there. Jeremy, you've seen 3 episodes. 4 of them are out by the time we're recording this.
I heard the fourth one was very good.
The whole thing is good. It is better in my opinion than Mandalorian in terms of a value proposition, in terms of enjoyment I get out of that. I am enjoying the Imagineering story more than anything else on this service.
It walks an interesting line between criticizing, saying critical things about Disney and telling a true story.
Oh, the whole thing is a marketing exercise. It's an advertisement. It is not an objective documentary.
So in that sense, it's hard to give it a huge amount of praise because it's not an objective documentary. It's bought and paid for by Disney. Now, the person who made it is an old school Disney family member and was given permission to make this documentary because of her connections. And so there's an element of
Her family members are subjects of the documentary.
yeah. There's an element of there is some truth here, but you do get to see a lot of things that anyone else probably would have never been given access to.
The archival footage is astounding.
Yeah, but also the behind the scenes stuff and the introducing of former Imagineers, and it's that element is great. I just wish that it was rounded out with more criticisms and honesty, and I do hear that there's a little bit of that in episode 4.
There is. And of course it's going to bounce back. It's a 6-episode series. They're going to end on a high note. They wouldn't dip down to their lows, acknowledging their lows, without being able to land on a high note. And I think timing is such that they're going to definitely talk about Galaxy's Edge and the Rise of the Resistance ride's going to be, and also maybe even the Starliner stuff. But for anyone interested in what makes a Disney theme park, what makes just the culture of theme parks in America so vibrant, and how that came to be, and what is that magic secret sauce of Disney, it is perfectly distilled in this documentary series. And it's not to say there aren't other great theme parks. Universal has had huge success, but if you go to Universal Park,
I don't think there's any comparison.
I think that the Harry Potter stuff at Universal is up there.
Fine. I have not seen that. That was still under construction when I was last at Universal, but I think there's just no comparison. In terms of the cleanliness and the cast member friendliness, it's Disney parks.
Oh, it's an orchestrated experience.
And it's definitely not real, but it's a fantasy I enjoy.
Yeah. Highly recommended. Again, Imagineering story. All right. Let's go through this relatively quickly.
We could skip it.
No, let's not skip it.
All right.
Let's put some stuff on. Hey, DeepMind's back in the news.
The AI project?
Yes. AlphaGo.
AlphaGo? What's going on?
Well,
did you not add this?
no, I think maybe I thought you added it.
No, this
okay.
is probably
Well,
because sure.
remember the whole story, and there's a whole documentary about this. Lee Sedol, right?
Yeah.
Was the
South
master
Korean?
South Korean master of Go champion, right? And in the documentary series, he lost to AlphaGo.
I did add this.
Yeah, I know you did.
I didn't read it.
That's okay. Okay. So he was the Go champion, beaten by DeepMind, and it was a story of of two heavyweights coming against each other. And I think at that point, AlphaGo was the underdog.
Yeah.
No one believed that AlphaGo would win. It did, to a point where Lee Sedol has now retired from professional play, motivated by how good the AI is. The AI is so invincible. He has taken away his enjoyment of playing competitively.
The subhead on the article by The Verge says, "Even if I become the number one, there is an entity that cannot be defeated."
That is the most cyberpunk dystopian
Yes.
thing ever.
Yeah, let this be a warning to
Today.
to us all.
Wow. That's a David and Goliath story that went the wrong way. Humans are now the Davids, and AIs are the Goliaths.
Right. Yes.
Not the other way around.
In Go, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Thankfully, Go is a very specialized skill. But
Well, with
now,
general AI.
now we have John Carmack working on generalized AI.
Invincible, unbeaten. Yeah. Another story out of Tech News. December 11th is a big date if you're a Twitter user. Well, it's actually being delayed. It was going to be December 11th. Twitter had announced that early December, they were going to start removing inactive accounts.
Okay.
so that those usernames can be freed up.
Great.
Now, they had then stepped back from this because I get where they were coming from. There are a lot of people who maybe just created dummy accounts and just sat on the usernames and didn't use them and they want to open those up and get more users, new users, a whole new generation of users onto Twitter. It's going to be a problem in social media eventually. Any social media platform, if they plan on lasting for more than 25 years, there will be another generation of users that want to have the same usernames. And how can you preserve that? Mm-hmm. Well, they didn't consider the fact that a lot of inactive accounts are inactive because the users passed away in the real world.
Okay.
And so they need to find a way to actually memorialize them.
Oh, because they should be archived.
They should be archived.
Got it.
So it's not because the users are just squatting on them. It's because those users aren't there to use the accounts anymore. So they're going to take a step back and they're going to find a way for people to memorize accounts and kind of figure that out. So previously, it was accounts that were inactive for more than 6 months could be subject to removal. So that deadline will shift from December 11th to sometime in the indeterminate future.
Okay.
But if you are a Twitter user that still has an account and maybe haven't logged in 6 months, maybe you want to log in eventually before they start taking that away.
Do that.
All right, that's it for technology news.
Oh, wow. All right, excellent. And we're skipping science, so on to the virtual reality. Oh, no, wait, we got a thing.
The VR Minute. Virtual reality this week.
Before we talk about virtual reality, I want to let you know that This Is Only a Test this week is also made possible with support from Lutron Caseta Smart Lighting Systems, pioneers in smart home technology. A lot of people think you need smart bulbs to get smart lighting, but there's a smarter way. Caseta smart dimmers and switches replace the switch in your wall so that all the lights controlled by that switch will act smart. Think about all the places in your home where one switch controls multiple bulbs. Ceiling lights, chandeliers, bathrooms, and more. With Caseta, you'll save money by replacing the switches instead of replacing all the bulbs. Smart bulbs are only smart while the switch is on. If someone flips the switch off, you can say goodbye to that smart control and connectivity. But Caseta switches are always smart, even if the switch is off. With Caseta dimmers, you don't need to buy smart bulbs to enjoy smart lighting. You get the best of both worlds. Smart lighting control from an app or your voice and control right at the switch. There's even smart features like a smart away feature, which randomly turns lights on and off during the evening to look like you're home when you're not, which could be especially useful if you're traveling during the holidays. Get smart lighting the smart way with Caseta by Lutron Smart Switches. Learn more about Caseta at lutron.com/test. Once again, that's LUTRON, lutron.com/test. No need for the VR intro. We're in the VR minute now. We got 15 minutes to talk about VR. Jeremy, how about let's talk about, what's this?
Is that coming through? Oh, that's
Yeah.
coming through AirPlay.
What's going on? What's going on?
I'm trying to do a little transition music, but it's coming through. I failed. I failed. When we sat down to do this podcast, you said, what is the top story of the week? Is it Half-Life Alyx?
Yeah.
It is, right?
It is, right?
I said, well, we did that 2 weeks ago, which was our last podcast. And I said, well, we should make a Cybertruck, but here we are. We're at what the top story that could have been. Half-Life
the story that was.
Alyx.
The story that is.
Has been revealed.
Yeah.
Announced. A trailer has been revealed.
March 2020.
Is this the biggest thing to happen to virtual reality since the Oculus Kickstarter?
In terms of content, 100%. In terms of hardware, tough to say.
Why is this more important than Beat Saber? Why is it more important than Asgard's Wrath or Stormland, which arguably have potentially the same budget?
I think that's probably the wrong question to ask because importance to VR can mean a lot of different things. And importance to who, right? Importance to VR as a market. You can make a really good case that a game like Beat Saber will do more for VR as in general, in terms of awareness of VR, and maybe even as a killer app for VR, than Half-Life or any mainstream console or PC game franchise could for VR.
It probably has been the killer app for many, many people.
Many people didn't even for those people who don't own VR headsets, the virality of Beat Saber videos on social media networks, on Facebook, the fact that Facebook has now bought Beat Games. I mean, Beat Saber itself has done more. And you can even make the argument that other more like indie games on VR have done more or will do more for VR and getting young people enthusiastic or mainstream users enthusiastic about VR than a game like Half-Life Alyx could.
You don't think Half-Life Alyx appeals to young people or mainstream gamers?
I think it definitely appeals to quote-unquote core gamers, PC gamers, and console gamers. But if you're talking about, and I'm going to go back to Thanksgiving, I spent a lot of time with my nephews there, 13-year-old kids who are, on YouTube, on Twitch, have PSVR, interested in VR, they could not be less interested in Half-Life Alyx.
Did they know about it?
They definitely were aware of it. They've seen the YouTube videos. Not interested. They are way more interested in things like Blade and Sorcery and things like Richie's Plank Experience. and I'm being serious. Even Beat Saber is like, oh, Beat Saber is fun. They love Job Simulator and they love VR chat. They freaking love VR chat. VR chat is way more of a killer app for a younger generation than Half-Life Alyx is. That's not to say Half-Life Alyx isn't important for VR. It is absolutely a hugely important thing for VR, but we got to recognize its importance lies in its ability and its potential to bring hardcore gamers, traditional core, quote unquote core gamers, into the VR fold. People who have gaming PCs, who have disposable income, who may buy content. We may be interested in a game like Stormland or Asgard's Wrath or Lone Echo, but didn't want to make that jump over into buying a headset. This is a game that could push them to buying headsets.
Well, that's what I consider a killer app, right? Is a game that sells headsets,
right?
And this has proven to be that for a lot of people already.
The Index went out of stock.
It's
days
not
after.
even out, right? And it pushed the Index to the top of the now top selling chart on Steam. And as you mentioned, it's now sold out through the holiday.
Yeah,
that's the complete kit. That's $1,000 headset. Now that's one headset. You don't need the Index to play Half-Life VR. That's the most expensive option.
Any, with controllers, touch controllers, hand controllers,
motion
controllers, Windows Mixed Reality, the Rift S,
even the Quest
with Link will work.
That's right. So I think that I would love to know how Oculus feels about Half-Life VR or Half-Life Alyx, because it's got to have been good for their sales. And it certainly doesn't hurt them unless they really, really don't want Steam or Valve to have to get a foothold in the VR space. If
the marketplace for VR was more successful, if there were more people already in VR, if the hockey stick ramp up for adoption was where everyone 3 or 4 years ago hoped it would be in 2019, that would be the case. But I think both Facebook, Oculus, and Valve are in a place where they just want to see more people in VR and less skeptical about VR.
That's my positive, optimistic viewpoint too, but I have no idea. There's got to be discussions internally with differing opinions on that. Like people who want to own everything,
I'm sure eventually they do want to own everything.
Yeah.
And Valve, understandably, is not in that business of wanting to own everything, even though, famously, Half-Life 2 was was the killer app for Steam.
Yeah.
Right. You needed Steam. You need online connectivity to play it. Half-Life Alyx is not locked in to one headset. It may be locked into Steam. That's the assumption, that you got to buy it through Steam. But then Steam VR can be used with any headset.
The 13-year-olds who don't have an interest in it, I gotta think that that's obviously because they didn't grow up playing Half-Life, but also more importantly, it's because they haven't been exposed to anybody playing it. There's nobody that they look up to who's playing it right now, either on Twitch or has reviewed it. Like, these kids are so impressionable, and they like what their friends like.
But what though? I think.
And if they play it, if the people that they're watching play it, And there's new mechanics, like there's new, well thought out VR mechanics that make Half-Life Alyx more than just a good story. It's going to be something special.
I think
Even for the young kids.
the type of games that market, people who are following people who are streaming or watching YouTube,
Yeah.
the type of games are not the big narrative AAA titles. That's not appealing to them as a genre. They want replayable, single hit. You can play it for 5 minutes, play it for 10 minutes, and get something novel over and over again. It's why they like Job Simulator. It's why they like Blade and Sorcery. They just want to cut off some heads, right? They don't care necessarily about God of War, right? They don't care about Death Stranding, Metal Gear Solid. They don't care about the big, single player linear game. They want something that's multiplayer where they want the internet chat room, they want VR chat, or they want something where they can basically be enact shenanigans in VR for 15 minutes at a time.
Yeah. They're obviously in Rec Room too.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Yeah. So I don't know I think Half-Life Alyx complements those games. And I think it's less going to be, I don't think Half-Life Alyx, regardless of how much that is streamed and broadcast on YouTube, is going to be a compelling sell for a younger audience.
Yeah.
And it's more going to be for the older audience, but which is important.
I don't think there's too many. Like, I don't think that demographic of the 13-year-old PC gamer is that big. I mean, is it?
I think it's much bigger than 13-year-old gamer.
The 13-year-old gamer who's using their parents' PC?
Who's playing Minecraft on PC?
Yeah, but you can
playing
play Minecraft
Rocket
on
League,
almost anything,
right? Or grew up playing games on mobile devices. On again, pick up and play.
Yeah.
Short experience games on mobile devices. That generation gamer, if they're interested in VR, they're interested in VR for short, fun bursts, and they will maybe they'll love longer narrative games, but there's a whole contingent of gamers, the core gamers, who want those big games. And I think, regardless of how successful Stormland and Asgard's Wrath was, like, this is an existing franchise that will, again, like you've said, has shown already converted people into trying VR and adopting it.
I mean, it certainly sold more headsets ahead of launch than I think any other game has done. I mean, it has to have. And that's not to say that Asgard's Wrath is not a spectacular game. It's just it doesn't have name recognition.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the lineage.
Well, it's why I think Oculus hoped that Medal of Honor would be.
Well, yeah, and that's a year out.
And I mean, these are both next year, right? And Medal of Honor hopefully is next year as well. But like,
Isn't next when they said Medal of Honor's next year, I'm thinking late next year.
you think
Whereas Half-Life Alyx is coming up relatively soon.
regardless of exactly when it's coming out, even a recognizable studio like Respawn and a recognizable name like Medal of Honor did not, I don't think, move the needle as much as Half-Life, because it's been so long since we've had a game from Valve.
Yeah, exactly. Like Valve used to make their name based on the games that they made.
I mean, you're talking about a studio that made one of the best games of all time.
And then did it again.
And then did it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And the hope is that's what makes this an unmissable experience, or feels like an unmissable experience.
Yeah.
Do you have any consolation for the non-VR gamers, like, and their griefs?
It's been it's divisive. I think you could say easily. Like the reactions have been very, very positive, and they've been very, very negative based on your opinion. And people have been so vocal about it. Like it's made such a splash, the news of this game, that you're going to hear both sides. And I do feel bad for people who don't have a VR headset and love Half-Life. Like, I get that. And the problem with their angst and their anxiety and their being upset that this is a VR exclusive, first of all, there's people who think it's going to come to flat screen like a year later.
Oh, that's not going to happen.
And that's not going to happen. Like,
Also, do people?
they're
they're
deeply confused about VR mechanics if they think that that's going to happen.
And you made the point. We've talked about this off air, but Half-Life 2 and Half-Life, people remember fondly and love, not necessarily because of the story or the characters, but because of how well those are integrated with new mechanics. And if Valve made if they put out Half-Life 2 or Episode 3, right, and it was new desktop, like some new puzzle mechanics, but in a polished game, it wouldn't be pushing the boundaries like what a VR game could do for that franchise.
This whole this came up 2 weeks ago with Kishore. Like he was saying, it's Half-Life 3. I was like, don't say that. It's not Half-Life 3. It's because people care about that so much. But I personally do not care if it's Half-Life 3, if it's Half-Life Alyx. It's a Half-Life game in virtual reality. Call it what you want. And that might be because I care less about story and plot than other people do. I couldn't tell you what happened in Half-Life episodes 1 and 2. I remember loving the games for the gameplay, for the mechanics and the motion through the
physics.
world and just the interactions that I had as a player in the world. That's what Valve has always done so well. Like whether it's incorporating physics or the mechanics of telling a story in the original Half-Life, like that mechanically was interesting and compelling. And so whatever they're going to do in virtual reality is going to one up, whatever we've seen so far in terms of polish and mechanics for motion controllers. And
So-
I look forward to seeing what that is.
Yeah.
I don't care what the plot is. That's secondary to me.
So from what we've seen in the trailer, this short teaser trailer, what are the mechanics that jump out at you as being, whoa, that is interesting for VR? Obviously, there's reloading of the weapons, there's scrounging around the world, picking up objects, that kind of discovery.
I think I'm most excited about the physics engine because this is a new physics engine in Source 2 that has been developed from the ground up. And I'll be very curious to see how much of the world is physics enabled and physics properties. A lot of people have compared it to Boneworks, saying that, well, they're doing the same thing. Boneworks is coming out later this month, I think, and I'll be very excited to play that. I know they're friends with the Valve guys. I'm sure there's some cross-pollination there in terms of like ideals. And in Boneworks, you have that full IK model of the body. If you like that, I think that's a design choice at this point. I think both directions can be done well.
Floating hands versus having elbows.
Yeah, exactly. But I obviously the index controllers,
Cap sense.
there's something going on there with
The gravity gloves.
exactly. There's a clever name.
Gravity gloves.
Yeah, gravity
Gravity gloves.
Yeah.
Gravity gloves.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the big thing. This really awesome. I mean, visually looks great, but this Alyx gets these gloves.
Yeah.
Right. These fingerless gloves that have electronics on them that enable some type of force powers. And playing other VR games that kind of give you a sense of force powers, Vader Immortal comes to mind. That's not an easy thing to implement well. As hard as it is for designers in VR to get throwing a ball right, that is also incredibly difficult because when you just have one grip button, or when you don't even have an analog grip button, when you just have one button, so no one, and of course the motion of the hand, that is something that you probably need machine learning to get perfectly right and cater to how each individual person moves and releases a ball. You have to train for that. But the force power, grabbing something and kind of figure out intent for moving an object when all you're doing are subtle hand movements and finger movements, if they don't get that right, it's not going to be satisfying.
Yeah.
So that's going to be tough. I like that the one part of the trailer you had Alyx saw her stick her hand on its console.
And she had to keep it
she
there.
had to keep it there. And that's I like that.
Me too. And while shooting
And while physically moving, because that
Yeah.
takes advantage of all the physicality of VR, of
Yeah.
leading around corners. But then you're designing almost like these combat scenarios around one type of space. And we haven't really seen that type of built into the narrative experience.
Just to finish this one thought about the backlash from people who don't have a VR headset and who are upset that this is VR exclusive. And this is not my original thought. A lot of people have made this comment, but I think it needs to be reiterated. This game would not exist if it weren't for VR. It's not like they made the call, should we make this VR game in flat screen or should we make it for VR? It's made because they are inspired by virtual reality. And whether you have a headset and share that opinion or not doesn't change the fact that Valve is not only like a believer in VR to the extent that they've made a great VR headset, but they believe in it from a game development standpoint, like as gamers.
Right,
and so
right.
that's why they made this game. It's not like
Well, I completely agree.
Yeah.
And I will play the devil's advocate and try to interpret what I think those people are thinking. Their argument isn't that they don't understand that this game was made for VR. They see it as the opportunity cost. Valve has 50 employees working on a Half-Life game right? The fact that it's made for VR, if VR didn't exist, maybe those 50 employees would be working and putting all their creative efforts into a desktop or console Half-Life 3 game. And that's the opportunity cost that they are expressing grief over.
Right. But they haven't done that in 10 years. And they could have.
They could have.
People at Valve can do whatever the hell they want to do.
And it's like they are doing this because, like you said, they have been creatively inspired to do this. They're not doing this because they've been inspired by VR. I mean, that's talking to the folks at Valve, like Chet when he was there, they get to they have the freedom to explore the kind of technologies and experiences they want, and VR latched on as something that they think moves the entertainment and creative, and it's why we're fans of VR, right? And so we're happy and glad that they share that enthusiasm.
There'll be more coming about Half-Life Alyx at the Video Game Awards, which are next week.
Yes, next Thursday. And Jeff Keighley, of course, has a documentary series. Apparently, he's played through the thing. The game, yes. And he has a great interview with the folks at Valve about at least the announcement with not a ton of details. I think the big takeaway for that is, of course, they're working on multiple VR titles. They've started games that they've decided not to ship because it didn't meet their standards or it didn't fulfill them creatively. And my brain immediately goes to, where's that Left 4 Dead game? They said no Portal game.
I know. Well, they said they chose not to do Portal, and they also said they chose not to do Half-Life 3, particularly because of the enormous burden that is.
Do you think that, okay, again, I'm going completely speculative here. Half-Life Alyx gets released.
Yeah.
Incredibly well received. That gives them the confidence and experience to then iterate again and do Half-Life 3 in VR.
Yes.
A full-blown, maybe like same length, double length, whatever, put more resources in there. Do you think that Half-Life 3 would be less exciting because a lot of the mechanics and innovations were already revealed in Alyx?
Yeah, I have no idea. I actually don't know if they would choose to do a Half-Life 3 for VR exclusively. Just given what it means to their player base, and still that it's 1% of the Steam, membership that has a VR headset. I mean, that would, like I said, it doesn't matter to me, but it matters to them. People. It matters to them, and I don't know how they would make that call.
All right, well, that's Half-Life Alyx. There's really not that much else we can say about it because we don't know anything except for the trailer.
Yeah, but it's coming out soon.
It's coming out in March. We mentioned Facebook bought Beat Saber or Beat Games. Quick thoughts on that?
No, I gotta go.
You gotta go?
Yeah.
They bought Beat Games. I think hopefully that means more licensed stuff. Facebook has the lawyers and the connections to get more songs on there, and hopefully they can remain independent. We have a bunch of stuff on Quest coming out. Arizona Sunshine, first trailers for that. That's gonna be 4-player multiplayer. The Climb is coming out, or is out on Quest. That's Crytek's game.
Came out Tuesday. Arizona comes out Thursday.
Quake 2 on Side Quest.
Dude,
apparently you like that.
You have to play this.
I'm going to play that. Phantom Covert Ops pushed to 2020.
I want to talk about Quake 2.
Okay, Quake 2.
30 seconds.
All right.
Quake 2 is better on Quest than it was on flat screen in 1997.
Holy smokes.
It is better. It
is the edge there. The level, multiplayer. DM.
No. The multiplayer doesn't work well. So it's single player only. Yeah, no. But it plays so well. It's by the same guy who did Half-Life, which is also excellent. My beef with Half-Life are the controls are a little more complicated. Quake 2, they're id controls.
Yeah.
It's dead simple, and it plays so well. And I think it was $1.50 on Steam recently. You just copy the pack files over along with you sideload the Quake 2 executable. And it's fantastic. So to play it, it's an excuse to try Side Quest if you haven't done it already.
All right, and that's literally all we have time for on the podcast. This week, we'll be back, I believe, next week as we get closer to the holidays and the end of the decade with more talking. And hopefully we'll be able to record. I don't know if we'll be able to record after VGAs or not, but I think there'll be some exciting stuff that will be shown there. We have an outro, Jeremy?
Sure, yes, we do. I don't know. Let's see what this is. Is this going to work?
Let's try.
Oh, wait, it's on AirPlay still.
I didn't see her.
That was coming. Oh,
For a moment of silence.
right, I've put a big picture on the screen behind you. It's of telescopes looking at the night sky. Do you notice anything about the image, gentlemen?
Yes, there's satellites in the sky.
That streak you see across the sky are the Starlink satellites that SpaceX has been launching. And astronomers are pissed. Internet satellites. Streams of satellites.
There's satellites in the sky.
Streams of satellites. Starlink. Streams of satellites.
There's satellites in the sky.
Telescope. Streams of satellites. Altitude satellites. Streams of satellites.
There's satellites in the sky.
Streams of satellites. Elon Musk. Streams of satellites.
There's satellites in the sky.
Internet. Streams of satellites.
Yeah, they want to have hundreds of these.
There are so many of them that they're interfering with astronomical observations. Astronomers are pissed.
Thanks, Wog.
See ya, Jibo. Hey, stick around because we have a little bit more for you this episode. This week, I'm in Las Vegas for the AWS reInvent Conference. This is where the AWS Deep Racer Championship Cup is happening. That's the global autonomous racing league making use of Deep Racer, the scale RC car that runs autonomously along a track using machine learning and reinforcement learning. To get a better sense of these technologies, I recently sat down with Mike Miller and Ali Miller of AWS to talk about AI, Deep Racer, and all things machine learning. Let's take a listen. All right, so I'm really excited to be joined here by Mike and Ali. You guys are on the AWS team, but specifically on the AI and Deep Racer projects. First, introduce yourself. And
That's right. Yeah, thanks, Norm. So my name is Mike Miller. I'm the general manager of the AI devices team here at AWS, the team that brought to you the Deep Lens and the Deep Racer devices.
And my name is Ali Miller, and I serve as the head of AI growth for startups and venture capital, working across our ML stack specifically for startups.
So it sounds like AI, a big part of it, and which is very different than what people may assume when they think about S3 and AWS being a place that you can store stuff. It's the backbone for a lot of modern companies, but how does AI fit into all of it?
Yeah. Honestly, the vast majority of machine learning done in the cloud is on AWS. So whether it's database storage, those things are just powering all machine learning. We actually have 3 stacks. So from frameworks into platforms, into application services, startups and enterprises alike are really leveraging machine learning today.
And one of the ways you're getting people into that, introduced to that, is this project. It started off with Deep Lens, right? Can you tell me about Deep Lens?
Yeah, absolutely. So Deep Lens was conceived as a way to give developers some hands-on experience with this new deep learning, machine learning technology, and specifically computer vision. To date, when we launched Deep Lens in 2017, if a developer wanted to learn about machine learning, they could try to stay abreast of, fast-moving academic literature. They could go online and kind of find some pretty dry, basic tutorials, but there really wasn't a fun, hands-on way for them to get introduced to the topics. And so really that's what we were trying to do with Deep Lens, was give developers a fun way to get engaged that was easy to learn and easy to kind of get started with, but also had a rich depth. So as they wanted to learn more about training their own models or get deeper into computer vision or how that can integrate with IoT, Deep Lens was a way to do that.
And it also feels like a way for me as a user and as a layperson to understand very easily the potential of machine learning when you say something like, how do you teach a computer system to recognize objects that we kind of, in our lizard brain, understand, right, in the real world?
Yeah, absolutely. And what we've seen is that developers who have been using Deep Lens have brought these things into companies and have been introducing machine learning technologies into companies and building prototypes and gaining some intuition about how machine learning can help solve business problems.
It makes me think of that, like the Silicon Valley joke, right? The hot dog, not hot dog. That's exactly what this kind of system can do, right? It can, without you telling it what an object is, it just trains itself. And so using the input, which in this case is just like a camera, doesn't even need to be super high resolution or high fidelity, but it can, over time, through iterative training and the models you program, learn these things.
Yeah. I mean, that's the gist of modern machine learning, is being able to use a large data set of example data and train a model to make a prediction or recognize an object or make a forecast.
And I think a really interesting thing of what you pointed out is the ability to put machine learning into the hands of every developer and data scientist. And as we think of that evolution, that journey, starting with education is really step one. And that could be Deep Racer, Deep Lens, any of our APIs and AI services. Where is that first step? Something that's handheld and fun is a really interesting spot to get into that machine learning. And now we have tens of thousands of customers leveraging machine learning in real business applications, but it starts with fun things like this.
What were people doing with Deep Lens, once they got into it? Were there applications that came out of that?
Oh, we've got a whole set of kind of community submitted projects on our website that you can take a look at. Everything from actually integrating it with Alexa and Echo devices to doing computer vision type of tasks like recognizing if a car is driving up your driveway and you want to maybe call an API to open your garage door. Companies are looking at this to solve problems. For instance, doing construction site worker safety. So if a construction site worker walks through the front gate, do they have a hard hat on? And other practical examples like that.
And machine learning, you mentioned like the Alexa devices. It works for audio as well. You're training those models on recognizing sounds. I mean, it works for sound as well as imagery. Is that right?
Yeah, there's a whole set of machine learning services that are at the top layer of the stack that Ali mentioned that are focused on natural language recognition.
It runs the gamut. So we see computer vision, language, speech, even now forecasting and recommendation engines. And so my favorite use cases are when people are actually combining these things to be able to build out some sort of multimodal activity. And it could be giving a speech-enabled direction or intent to then have a robot or a system be able to make a decision from that. My favorite part is honestly the builder and hacker mentality. And so seeing some of these fun things about opening garages, being able to then make its way into businesses is really exciting to watch.
And that really is what I think Deep Racer feels like it's about, right? It's something tangible, it has that hacker mentality. It is a physical platform. So while this is the same kind of camera sensor that was on Deep Lens, you're also having a lot more input and a lot more telemetry, essentially, right, from this. So talk about this platform and how you guys came up with this model.
Yeah, certainly. So Deep Racer is a 1/18 scale model RC car. It's a 4x4 monster truck chassis with a compute engine powered by Intel on the top of it. The compute engine is taking input from the camera on the front and using that as input to the machine learning model that's running on the device to make steering and throttle decisions to decide how to drive. So really this platform was born out of how can we take advantage of what we've already developed with Deep Lens. As you say, we've got the same camera mount, and in fact the compute module on here, that Intel platform, is the same as the one we use in Deep Lens. So we've got a lot of synergies and we could reuse a lot of elements of those two things together. But we married it with a monster truck chassis and turned it into a great education platform for teaching people about reinforcement learning, which is this new machine learning technique.
And kind of the stakes are a little bit higher because it's not just a passive camera analyzing images, it's actually moving along a track, right? There are like real fail states when it goes off-road or, with the variability of the hardware here. So what are the things that participants tap into on this system? And what does that reward function look like? Like, give me an example of what they're programming?
Yeah, great question. So as a developer, you're actually interfacing primarily with our online simulator, because the way reinforcement learning works is that you have an agent in a simulated environment that's learning through trial and error and through giving and receiving rewards for achieving certain goals or reaching certain complex behaviors. So as a developer, you're interacting with a simple reward function that's written in Python, so pretty straightforward for developers of all skill levels to take advantage of and get acquainted with rapidly. You're editing that reward function in the online simulator, and that reward function gives you variables that you can use to make a decision about whether to grant a reward to your car or not. So for instance, is your car close to the center line? Is your car steering heavily left or right? What's the position of your car on the track? This is all data that a developer has access to as they write their reward function.
And then they're tweaking those variables and running it through that whole model through the server on the platform for how long are they running the simulation?
So they'll do the training. So the training has a simulation component, and typically that takes anywhere from an hour to a few additional hours to really achieve a model that can make itself drive all the way around the track in a consecutive laps effectively, because that's really what developers are trying to get to, is can they finish consecutive laps, and then they can take that trained model and submit it to the Deep Racer League. We have this online league where developers from around the world can compete against each other.
Is it the general assumption that if you have more granularity in like the actions that you're assigning to the Deep Racer and more training time, is that generally better performance, or is that not always the case?
This is something that developers learn, while they're using Deep Racer, right? Is what's the relationship between, like you were saying, the number of variables, the action space that the car can take, the relationship between exploration versus exploitation. How much should the car just explore initially to find the optimal path versus actually exploit the knowledge that it has learned already by driving and training? And so those are exactly a lot of these kind of trade-offs, and it comes down to being as much art as it is science, for crafting a reward function and seeing, tuning the training hyperparameters, much like in, machine learning that happens for businesses today. A lot of it is very similar.
So it's less about telling the vehicle what to do, but how to learn.
That's absolutely right. That's the crux of reinforcement learning, is defining how we want to teach and how we give the agent rewards to achieve that complex goal.
Also, one of my favorite pieces is sort of the trial and error of trial and error. Some of the most fun parts of the Deep Racer League is what happens right after the competition's done. People keep networking, people keep talking on these networks and these forums, only so that they can perform even better the next time around. Companies have even created their own leagues and are continuing to talk about this and optimize. So I always like to see what happens right after that final race is done, to see what happens on the next iteration.
That's right. We've seen individual developers get so excited about learning machine learning through Deep Racer that they've gone back to their companies and said, hey, CIO, CTO, manager, I had this great experience with Deep Racer. Can I expense one of these? Can we use this on my team? And the savvy executives have recognized that this is an amazing opportunity for them to really engage their entire workforce in an exciting way to upskill all of their talent about machine learning. And so we've seen customers like Accenture, Autodesk, Cognizant, Liberty Mutual, Morningstar, the list goes on of these big companies who are developing their own internal races and leagues and upskilling their entire workforce around machine learning.
Finding a life of its own that then gives you feedback for how to kind of evolve the whole platform, because there's new stuff every year, right? It's not a static platform, it's not static hardware even. The first season sounds like it was time trial, so it's about just the basics of can it stay on the track. But now you're doing direct competition. Tell me about that.
That's right. So we're super excited to bring, more opportunities, more challenges for developers, and more ways to win for developers with the Deep Racer League in 2020. So first, we've increased the number of virtual league events that developers can participate in, as well as summit circuit events where developers can visit us and have a physical racing experience. We've also introduced this new version of Deep Racer called Deep Racer Evo, which we've enhanced with some new sensing capabilities. So we've added stereo cameras and a LiDAR sensor that spins on its back so that the car can then sense other objects or cars in 3D space around it. And we've also, with these new sensing technologies, we're going to enable new racing types. So instead of just time trials, how fast can you get around the track, We're going to introduce object avoidance and actual head-to-head racing where two cars will race each other on the track at the same time. So all of these things combine to make 2020 really a year that developers are going to have a lot more opportunity to be involved, to win prizes, as well as to challenge themselves and learn new RL skills.
And when you're kind of deciding on what the new platform, what the new hardware platform looks like, is it the case that it's like the best quality sensor, the most data input is going to give you the most opportunity to run the new training, or do you find that you don't even need, yes, you want to fill a blind spot literally and kind of fill in that sensor fusion, but these aren't necessarily ultra wide angle 4K cameras.
That's true. That's true. And so, our goal with these devices is to make them affordable for everyday developers so that really they can get their hands on one of these things and try it out. And exactly like you say, we've got a fairly controlled environment in that track, and so we really can take advantage of these, lower cost kind of webcam style cameras, a relatively inexpensive USB basic kind of LiDAR unit that uses lasers for range finding, and combine those inputs into the machine learning model to make better decisions about how to drive around the track, or maybe even learn new behaviors like passing or overtaking cars.
Are you finding that the participants are creating their own tracks based on the layouts that you've shared? Like physically building their own tracks to test?
You'd be amazed at how exciting a lot of our developers get about engaging with Deep Racer. Everything from building a track in my backyard to taking over my floor in my office space. One guy posted a video, I didn't tell my manager, but I just set up, a track going around my office. And then of course there's the companies that I mentioned that do more official events. In fact, one exciting instance was Accenture, who's an APN Premier partner of AWS, just held the world's largest Deep Racer League event at their companies, 30 locations worldwide in a single day in like a follow the sun manner, to drive engagement and to upskill their workforce. And so those guys were super excited.
I'll even give a smaller example, which is people are showing up in team t-shirts, people are showing up with posters. I think not only is the scale insanely impressive, I've just been really impressed with the excitement that everyone brings. We had our REMARS conference in Vegas in June, and it's one of the most visually captivating things at Amazon conferences, and it welcomes people in. It's really new. I think most people haven't seen the track, and so as it scales out globally, people are becoming more and more familiar with the platform and trying to engage at home as well as inside their corporations. It's pretty amazing.
I love that idea that it's not widely known yet, but it feels like the underground racing equivalent for IT departments, right? Like they're converting their spaces, running it off hours, and again, and there's a lot of fun iteration to see one of these actually complete a task and improve the times.
Oh, absolutely.
What's the difference between day one when people have first get their hands on these and at the end of the league, how much improvement have people shown? So
when we launched the project at reInvent in 2018, we did a miniature league, and we had developers for the first time getting hands-on with this technology and actually training models and then racing them around the tracks. And we held a final. And the winner of that final was this guy named Rick Fish. He was relatively new to machine learning, took our workshop on a whim, was really excited about what he learned and said, hey, I'm gonna go race this on the track. And then, kind of stayed up working with our helpers in the garage to learn about how to tune his reward function. He wound up winning the final with a lap time of 51.5 seconds. Our current world record was set by Sola, a woman from Tokyo at the Tokyo Summit, and that world record is 7.44 seconds. Wow. So you can see just this radical jump is an improvement in the technology, but also just developers, really getting into this, getting hands-on and figuring out how to optimize the best way.
Absolutely. And my favorite thing that I saw at REMARS was someone saw the track, did not have exposure to reinforcement learning or even machine learning at that point, went to a 1-hour workshop, ended up placing in the top 10. And so developers on an individual basis are able to go from, I know nothing about reinforcement learning, to I'm one of the top 10 people at this entire event because of the platform and the technology that we're providing. And it's the education speed for this space has been really amazing to watch.
And of course, we're all leading up to this year's reInvent. I can't wait to chat with some of the teams there. But thank you both so much for your time, giving me a little bit better understanding of how this came about and all the excitement around it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Norm.
We're excited too.